Before I start, I'll just share a little bit about myself. For the past 20 years, I've been living in Udaipur. 21. Okay, 21. For the past 21 years, I've been living in Udaipur and working in a movement called Shikshantar, which truly believes that you don't need schools for learning, that all human beings are creative, beautiful, intelligent, and gifted, and that we need to create more and more learning communities instead of schooling societies. I'm myself an unschooling mom. My daughter is sitting right here, and she has never been to school. And we support people to consciously walk out of the mainstream education system and create their own paths of learning. Because we know that true learning actually exists outside schools. And I can say that from my own experience. While growing up, I studied in more than 9 schools, 12 years of my schooling, 9 schools. And they were all kinds of schools, government schools, convent schools, private schools. And at the end of every morning, I had a stomachache before going to school. The thought of going to school was like, oh man, why do I have to do this every day, every morning, when I know that everything I'm learning in school is actually not related to my real life. When I left school, I consciously questioned why I learned all those things that make no sense to me in my life. I also went to college and I studied sociology, and I questioned what I learned in those 3 years of college, whether they really helped me to become a good human being, whether I could actually call myself a so educated person. Because when I left college, I realized that I had actually become a big consumer, and I was living like a parasite. I knew nothing about my own life, about what I wanted to do in my life. And I always questioned why, in the 12 years of my school, I had never been asked what I wanted to learn, what my dreams were. I'd only be told what to learn. And most of the deep connections, the most beautiful experiences I had in my life were when I was with my grandparents, when I was in nature. They were totally devalued when I was actually, in school. And it really made me think a lot about what knowledge is and why we all have to go through 12 years of schooling. I mean, today we have more than 50 brands of toothpaste to choose from, but one model of education that we all have to go through, and that's schooling. And there's only one thing that actually determines whether you're educated or not, and that stupid piece of paper called a degree, which actually doesn't even help you in your life anymore. So why do we have to create societies which are based only on degrees and diplomas, when there is actually no real learning in any of those things? So for the past 12, 15, my daughter is 17 now, we've been trying to, there's a beautiful saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And we've been trying to create many different kinds of learning communities wherever we are. In Udaipur, we run a space which we call a Center for Unlearning, where we actually promote unschooling, homeschooling, self-designed learning, and we believe that every human being is capable of designing their own life. Today, we believe that everyone is being forced into the mainstream, but actually people hate that. So why can't we have many streams of learning where people actually decide what they want to learn and not just be dependent on degrees, diplomas, or being told what they have to learn all the time? So Shikshantar is also an intergenerational community. We don't have this age categorization where only kids are learning or only old people or only... It's a place for all generations to learn together, because I feel that healthy learning communities need to have at least 3 generations of people learning together. That's the way, most people have learned. And we are we really feel that there is a lot to learn from our illiterate grandmothers, so-called illiterate grandmothers. So they also actually come in as our gurus. There's a very beautiful saying in Mewari, the region I come from, which is that, I'll say it in Mewari once, it's Asal Jantantra yo nahi,
कि आपा शासका ने चुन सका, असल जनतंत्र वो है जब हम शिक्षकों को चुन सके. That real democracy is not when we choose our leaders, but the real democracy is when we can choose our own teachers, our own gurus. And that's the underlying belief of Shikshantar, that we really believe that every human being should be able to go out and decide who they want to have as their guru. And that guru could be anybody. It could be nature, it could be an artisan, it could be anyone who has the creative skills to share and give you. So we've also been working a lot with people who really want to create learning communities. I mean, when my daughter was born and when I came out of college, I realized that I knew nothing about a healthy living. I was actually totally ignorant of what a good life is, or what, I mean, I realized that I was totally disconnected from the basic three things of life, which is roti, kapda and makan. I'd never been taught anything about these three things. Roti, kapda, makan meaning what you should be eating, how you should be dressing yourself, and how you can, build communities or houses for yourself. These are the three basics of life, and my school and college education had totally disconnected me from these three basic things of life. So in Shikshantar and in many learning communities, we actually ask questions about how we want to live our lives, what's really meaningful in our lives, and how can we connect with people of all ages and all backgrounds to be able to create trusting relationships. I think that's the biggest problem that schools have created, is that they've just created job beggars and obedient slaves, industrial slaves. And we want to actually get out of that system where people can actually create jobs for other people, and they could be many, many different kinds of jobs. For the past 10 years, we started this whole beautiful experience called Swaraj University, where we don't ask for a degree and we don't give a degree. But it's a very powerful 2-year immersion into learning the skills that are very important in life, and which can actually help you build local communities. I mean, I think that's the first step to think about what localization is to think about how you can connect deeper with your own local community and your own local needs. We don't really, I mean, we've had lots of amazing people who've come out of Shikshantar who've actually started their own communities in Udaipur, and who don't really feel that, you're successful only if you move to Bombay or Delhi or move abroad. You can actually do so much more when you're in your own local community, because the kind of goodwill, the support you have while you're in your own local community is much, much, much stronger. And so there's lots of different things that we do in Shikshantar. And we also, I mean, as I said in the beginning, we support people who really believe that they're feeling suffocated in this mainstream. I mean, when we say it's an intergenerational, movement, we also tell people to consciously walk out of things that they find, not so meaningful in their life. I mean, people who've been working from 9 to 5 jobs hate their jobs, but we feel that there is always a new beginning in their lives. So we have this whole movement called the walkout movement, and people who have created their own paths, people who were in corporate jobs who decided that no, they really wanted to come back closer to nature, have now started organic farming or stuff that really, really they feel deeply connected to. And so Shikshantar has been there, and I mean, we want to just create many, many different alternative ways of learning. I mean, today, schools as an institution are actually, I would say, a dead institution, because they're only there because they want to create consumers. And when we actually think about the life that we want to live, schools don't really make any sense, because they're only giving you a piece of paper, a degree at the end, which doesn't even get you a job anymore. So rather than just getting that piece of paper, if we can create communities where people can go and learn from local people, I think that's where the real confidence and the local connections happen. I mean, I remember my daughter used to go and spend time with the animal shelter. She started her own business at a very early age. So when you start doing these things, you really learn more practically, rather than just learning from textbooks or from, just going for learning for exams. And the biggest thing that we want to challenge, which I think is very, very important for localization, is to actually get out of this whole notion of fake competition. I mean, competition is the worst thing that we can do. I mean, people talking about social justice don't even question that today, you know, the kind of labeling that is happening in schools at the age of 4 or 5 is the most dehumanizing thing that we can do to people. When we start telling children that you're stupid, you're dull, you're unintelligent, I think that's the worst thing that we can do. So we have to get out of this competition and labeling and start thinking of more living communities. Thank you.